Welcome to another episode of 100% Fresh with Two Chef Mission. Today we are going on a little bit behind the scenes talking about kitchen mishaps and lessons we've learned.
Yeah, so this is going to be a fun one. It's going to definitely show some real stories, some real sides of things that we've dealt with. And yeah, let's just
Yeah,
go ahead and jump right in.
okay. And so there could be a number of different mishaps that happen, whether it's things that are definitely 100% your fault,
Oh, yeah.
right? Not your fault, but like
But the
in general,
individual's
the
fault, yeah.
individual's fault. So I'm like, it's all your fault. No. So it's either your fault as an individual, or it could be that you're having to deal with um, kitchen mishaps in the sense of equipment, or
Oh, yeah, that's
yes.
true too.
So you're having to like really think on your feet, or with like ingredient, like loss of ingredients. So
Yeah,
you have to make quick changes in that. So,
exactly.
which one do you want to start with?
Let's, why don't we start with ingredients? Because
Ingredients.
that kind of is a good jumping off point. I feel like that's something most families or home cooks end up kind of experiencing the
Okay.
most.
So this has happened to us in a number of different places, but it also could be related to um, a surprise restriction or allergy.
Yeah,
It could be you realize you completely forgot the ingredient,
that's true too.
or it could be that, so like for us in restaurants, it could be that the food handler, receiver, things like that couldn't get a hold of the item. So now you have to think on your feet and change it up.
Yeah,
So if you're dealing with an allergy or restriction, that's where you kind of have to just totally take that item out and figure out what could I place with it or replace it with, right?
right.
And that, for us, that's kind of a game for us. But that's because we have a lot of knowledge on background, in our background on allergies. So we make it a puzzle that we have to figure out piecing back together.
Right.
And then when we've had different times that we don't have the ability of getting an ingredient, and
Yeah,
then that comes into researching how to um, figure out what can replace it. I know one of the things that we had a hard time finding was some type of molasses,
oh yeah,
pomegranate molasses, right?
yeah.
So
That one was
we,
rough.
I'm, I'm pretty sure that's what it was, right? So we were like, okay, what could be a similar flavor? And then we went around that, where we ended up kind of making a balsamic glaze
Yeah,
to
which is
replace
great.
it, which is not necessarily the exact ingredient, obviously, but you can use it.
Yeah,
And
and
that's going to be similar in restaurants of if they cannot get
yeah,
the item, or in your
exactly.
home. It's kind of doing a little research of, okay, what do I have on hand that could be similar, and then play around with that and see how it goes.
Right. I think those are all really good points to put across, especially because if you're at home and let's say you did forget an ingredient, but you have components to be able to make that
Mm-hmm.
ingredient or in a way replace that ingredient, where
Mm-hmm.
it's not really going to change up the texture or the profile of what you're making, I think that makes it easier to then say, oh, hey, I don't have to now make another
Mm-hmm.
trip out to the store and
Right.
do all that process all over
Yeah,
again.
so it's kind of that like, I messed up by doing this, but do I have to completely go back and
Restart the
restart?
process, yeah.
Yeah, or can I get away with not going back to the store?
Yeah, exactly.
Which then let's talk about diving into when it is your fault as the
Okay.
individual. These are um, issues that some of our top ones, right, that we've dealt with are when in baking.
Yeah. And
Very
we are not bakers. We want to preface that we are not
well, it's
bakers.
also we're human, right?
Yeah.
So we forget things, but our clients never get that item
No.
if we forget it,
No, no,
because
no,
we
no.
definitely the good thing is that we catch it, right?
Yeah.
So when in baking specifically, this has happened. We have definitely forgotten sugar a number of times.
Yeah, it's happened. I want to say I did it once or twice with pancake batter,
Hmm.
and I was like, did I actually put sugar in it? And
You
then when we
forgot
started cooking them,
baking. It was either baking soda or
oh no, it
baking
was
powder.
that's what it was. It
Yeah,
was baking powder
and
and
it
that.
was like these waffles were not rising properly, and I was like, this is not normal. What is happening, right?
Yeah,
And luckily we caught it, and we are like, let's just redo that because they
yeah,
also did not taste right. So the upside to what us is because we've worked with these things numerous times. It's we can start to see this isn't texturally right. This doesn't look right. Okay, let me taste it. Definitely not right. What's missing, right?
yeah, exactly.
So that's one, how we learn, and two, how we don't do it again.
For
But
sure.
well, ideally you don't do it again.
Yeah, no.
So I've
But again, we're
forgotten.
all human. It
we
happens.
we are all human.
I think the perfect example is when you've made a couple cakes.
I made your birthday cake and I think Allie's birthday cakes different times. And different years too.
Yep.
And totally forgot the sugar.
I
Totally forgot the
remember.
sugar.
I believe my birthday cake was supposed to be a carrot cake that year, and
it was a carrot cake.
it was.
It just was not a sweet carrot cake. So, in case you're wondering, it still works out. Just not the way that there's a reason sugar's in there. One, for flavor, and two, for texture and color and consistency and
Yeah.
all of that. So, that was a whoops. And recently, I will say that I forgot sugar in muffins, and I was like, these look weird. This is not right. What's going on? Hopefully, they turn out right. And then I tasted them afterwards, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I didn't add. So, that's the example in baking. So, it totally happens. But the idea is that as you can do things more often, right?
Yeah.
You can start to see like this isn't right. Have I gotten all the things in it? Okay, can I fix it now or do I have to completely remake it?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good example, and of course, being honest about it, and being real that even as professionals, like we forget stuff
Yeah, I
constantly.
in a baking class, someone that was in our group, they, they made cookie dough, right? And then like the cookies melted, like it was bad, like
Oh
it was just, and
no.
then you tasted them, and it was just like just sweet as all hell, right?
So they just put way too much sugar.
They put powdered sugar instead of flour.
So I was right in one way. They put way too much sugar.
Way too much sugar. It was funny, but it was just like, yeah, that was can't. Nope, nope. And
Oh
another
my God.
person, this is in baking, but it's not. This wasn't a cooking thing. This was if you've ever used a mixer, right? And it has the little dial that's like turn
Yeah.
up, stir one to like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
tornado, right?
Yeah.
They put their powdered sugar in and turned it to like tornado, and definitely made
A cloud.
and in a so if you haven't seen super large mixers in production, like in kitchens, production kitchens, in culinary schools, all of this, they have very large mixers, and so it's not just a little. It's
no,
like
it's
everywhere.
yeah, it's bad because some of those mixers can stand almost up to my chest.
Well, and some of them, like, I can sit in it.
Yeah, and the
Shouldn't do
bowls
that, but-
themselves are
but
just
it's that big.
massive.
But the point is that made a real big mess. And they also got the lesson of do not turn it on
To full blast.
to full blast. So
That's and that actually
oh
kind of
yeah,
leads into the next area that I think we're gonna go ahead and jump into. It's just equipment fails.
equipment fails.
Yeah, or equipment mishaps.
Equipment fails. Oh, are we talking about knives?
We can talk about knives.
We
Yeah.
can talk about knives. Well, I'm gonna touch base on one with your equipment in a mixer. If your mixer is on, do not put equipment in it.
No.
Do not put your hands in it.
No. 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 No.
Do not.
No. Now, the benefit of us having worked in professional kitchens, the professional mixers actually do have a safety guard that on top, if it's not fully set in the right place, the mixer itself will not turn on.
That's very important.
And that is hugely important.
Mm-hmm. Also,
Now, home mixers and home, countertop mixers.
Countertop mixers.
Yeah,
like small stand mixers.
Yeah, stand mixers. They don't have that additional security and benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Where if somebody isn't really paying attention, and they're standing next to a mixer, they might accidentally put their hand or their finger inside of it, and that could be very bad.
Don't do that. That just hurts thinking about it.
Oh yeah.
But also, if something falls in your mixer, don't reach in. Turn it off.
Yep. Always turn it off. Let the
Don't
thing
reach in.
stop moving, and then reach in once it's fully stopped.
Yes. So that was our little tips on baking equipment.
Yes.
Yes. And I'm sure that there are so many things we could talk about.
Well, it's like if you have a
maybe we'll
countertop.
have a part 2.
Yeah, we might. I think that'd be a good idea.
So the next thing we're going to talk about, because we talk about knife safety a lot, but
it's because it's really important.
It's important.
It's heavily important.
It is because it's a knife and
it's sharp.
we only have 10 fingers.
Right.
So, and you only have 2 feet.
Yeah, and you don't want to start losing some
toes
digits
or fingers. Yeah. So, point is, knife safety is very important, and you're only your own life. Just one life. So like
exactly.
that's where things like communicating that you're holding something sharp is very helpful. Also, the tip of when you're cutting something, right? Curl your fingers.
Yes.
Because you're not going to cut a flat surface, right? I mean, if you came up fully, don't do that. But you're touching here on your hand versus cutting.
I was also going to say the benefit of curling your fingers is they also end up acting as a guide as you're cutting, which is a huge plus.
And hopefully, you showed it just in case my hand wasn't up high enough. I'm like,
it ends up being a huge plus, especially if you're trying to cut something quickly.
Yes.
It ensures way more safety of your fingers, and that also means safety of the food, because if a knife were to cut you, now that food is contaminated and now it has to be thrown away.
Yeah. So for anyone who's watched any of those cooking shows, right, where the person ends up cutting themselves and they find out like way after, and then they're like, oh, I'm bleeding, but but I don't know when, and you're like, well, that's all trash.
Yeah. And it's all done specifically because the safety of the individuals who are eating it. Either it be in your home with family and friends or in a professional environment, and you have, 150 guests sitting at the tables out in the dining room.
You cannot feed them your blood.
Cannot. Do not do that. It's also a bad option.
Why would you want to do that? You would not. But so, safety within your hand in cutting.
Yes.
As well as using it as a guide. But also, if your knife falls,
let it fall.
Just let it fall.
Let it hit the ground. It might sound scary and loud when it hits the ground because it is metal, and it can be heavy, because depending on the knives you use, they can be very heavy. But please do not try to be a ninja and catch it mid-air. We have seen a number of accidents happen that way. I will say that I have tried and I
It's
have been
yes,
unsuccessful in the
it's
catch.
okay. So one thing we will say is you will be tempted to catch.
Yeah,
You will
it's almost like
because
a secondary instinct of like I need to reach
it
down and get this thing before
it
it hits the
is,
ground.
and I can say this because I have caught a falling knife, and I also got stitches for doing it.
Her reward for
And the
catching the
worst was
knife was
that
the stitches.
And the worst is, it wasn't even like when we were in a professional kitchen range. I was just cooking at home.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was very not fun and not talented. And as I was doing it, I was yelling at myself internally of like, "Don't do this!"
It's like stop,
And
stop,
it
stop!
was,
I don't want to catch it.
yeah,
I don't
it was
want to
like,
catch
no.
it.
So it was like, just started doing the thing, and then was like, no, I shouldn't have done the thing, and I felt the knife in my hand. So do not catch a falling knife.
I was like, thankfully, with Melissa's experience of trying to catch the knife, it wasn't so bad that it was like the palm of her hand,
No.
and it was only one of the fingers that got sliced, so it was a
Yeah, it
benefit.
was my ring finger.
I was like, it was a
which
benefit in the sense
yeah.
that it didn't cut a full digit off.
Oh yeah, no, that would be. Oh,
But
that
at the
would-
same time, we highly, highly, highly recommend you do not try to catch the knives.
Yes.
Let them fall, let them hit the ground. You can pick them up and put them next to the
Yes.
sink to clean them, but do not try to catch them.
Yes. And I say that from experience of doing it to my own hand. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, no. But also when a knife falls, because it is inevitable if you're cooking, like mistakes happen, you could fall. Step back.
Yes. Because you only, like you said earlier, you only have 2 feet
Exactly.
and you only have 10 toes. You don't want to lose any of them to a falling knife.
And that we've heard stories. I have not seen this happen,
No.
but I've heard
Thankfully.
stories in culinary school of this, and
I was
it's
like,
nope,
thankfully did not see it happen,
don't
but
do this.
I've definitely heard some stories about it too.
Yes. So, take a step back to let it just hit the ground.
And then once it's done, pick it up and put it away.
Yes.
Or not put it away, but put it to get cleaned.
And if you have kids, keep them out of reach of being able to just
Yes.
reach on
That's,
the counter.
That's a big kitchen safety tip right there. Just if you have little ones, keep sharp things away that they won't be able to reach it. Now the next thing you want to keep away is hot things.
Yeah. And also, I was gonna say, if you think they won't grab the knife, they will.
They will.
They will.
Our kids have tried.
Yes. No. But they also watch us cook all the time.
Yeah.
So there's that too. They want to be all up in our business of what we're doing.
They really do, which is great because we love it.
Yes. But yeah, our next zone of space for this area is hot things are hot. So if you put it in the oven, it's still hot when you pull it out of the oven.
Expect it to be hot when you pull out of it. And we have had probably way too many experiences with this in professional environments, at home, just anywhere really.
Yes.
And actually, one of the most recent instances or times that this happened was actually here at home. I was doing some dishes, and usually when we are cleaning either sheet trays or saute pans, we'll dry them in the oven. Depending on the saute pan or pots, because some of them have the rubber handles, they do have a heat rating, so you do need to understand what the heat rating is on those specific ones. But I put a pan in the oven, pulled it out because it was already dry, put it on top of the stove. I forgot to leave the oven mitt on it, where is what we usually do to indicate that it's hot. And I took the oven mitt with me, and I came back, a few minutes later to go and put it away. I grab it, and I immediately felt how hot it was. Thankfully, I didn't touch it for too long.
Yeah.
And I did not burn myself.
I was lucky.
Yeah, I was very fortunate, but it's definitely hot. Things are hot. Be careful.
Yes. And what he said there was the main lesson to learn from it is that if something is hot and came out of the oven, put a towel or an oven mitt or something on top of it to show that it's hot.
Right.
Because if you take it away, you don't know. So
No.
like this happened to me when I was like really little.
Oh, really?
So my mom was making cookies,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know if I was asked to move. I can't remember that part, but I know that I like grabbed the tray. Oh, my
No.
whole hand was like, it was bad
Man.
because it was like really hot. Obviously, just out of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
oven.
yeah.
So, like, my mom was just like, no! Too late. Already happening.
Yeah.
Because once you're grabbing, it's like, ugh. But if you mark it as hot by putting a towel or an oven mitt on it,
Right. It'll make you
then
stop and think for a
exactly,
second.
like, why is this here? Oh, it's hot.
Yeah.
And we can, that mishap happens occasionally, like what happened
Yeah.
with you, but um,
For the most part, it doesn't
it
for
doesn't
us.
for us now because one, being in the industry that we're in, as well as we've already had those things happen to us that
Yeah.
nope, don't, we generally put the towel always.
Yeah.
And now, and also, if, and I'm sure that anyone who watches it that is in culinary, as well as like anyone in the food industry, you burn yourself a lot.
Yes.
So you
Yes.
don't want to do it. Well, you don't want to do it ever,
No, you really
but
don't.
it happens a lot.
It hurts. It becomes
And
itchy.
we've had so many burns. So if anything can be saved like that, where it's like mark it as hot, put a towel there, okay, not gonna deal with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I've had people who've pulled things out of the, like, saute pans out of the oven and then just left them, and
Oh my
then you're like going to help
God.
them, and it's like, put a towel there. Maybe don't
Please.
leave that for me to burn the crap out of myself.
Yeah, because
So
that's the worst experience right
yeah.
there, especially because you're going to grab it to be
Hmm.
helpful,
Or to
either
just
in
move
the
it out of the
kitchen
way.
or like, exactly, it's because you just want to like
Hmm.
put it up or you want to help somebody or whatever it is, and all of a sudden you just burn your hand.
Yes. And I would say another area is within the hot things are hot is if you're not cooking in the kitchen by yourself, because this kind of goes back to the people who pull out
Right.
the saute pans and stuff, just leave them there. Communicate with the other person that's in the kitchen with you,
Exactly. Let them
so that
know.
so that they know where things are, where they pulled stuff out of the oven, if there's something in the oven, if there's a knife somewhere, which also leads to hot behind
Yes.
or behind in general. So
Yeah.
communication is definitely,
And these are just quick things that we would normally say in basically any sort of professional kitchen,
or you would hope that people say
or
it.
you would expect them to say it in
Yeah.
a professional kitchen because it is communicating and letting others around you
Mm-hmm.
know that either you're carrying something very hot and that you might burn them if they touch it, or that you have something very sharp and if they lean back into it, they might get an injury in another way.
Yes. And so that happened to me with someone not saying behind. And I was like at a tram trying to put something
Yeah.
on and stepped back. I had a chef catch me because I was falling
Oh
backwards.
no.
Because I got completely tripped
Oh my
by
God.
the person who did not say behind.
That's
It is,
terrible.
it was
That is
not. It was
so
like, oh my
bad.
gosh. Yeah, not fun.
I almost had an experience like that when I was still working in those high volume kitchens, and I was walking around the corner with some hot soups because they had them in specific bowls that would be heated up in the oven and then brought to the front as for serving. And I remember there was an individual who was stepping backwards as I was walking in their
Oh my
direction,
gosh.
and I was basically yelling, hot behind you, hot
Yeah.
soup. And another individual had to grab them and pull them forward
Yeah.
and save them,
And
basically.
thankfully they were listening.
Yeah, thankfully, because that could have been such a big
That
issue.
makes me think of our children where we're just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Stop what you're doing.
Yeah.
It just made me think of like, do
Yeah.
you have your listening ears? As parents, right?
Oh man.
Did
Yeah.
we touch all three areas?
I feel like we have. I feel
Was
like we
it
touched the
okay?
baking.
Let's think
We've
about
touched
it.
the
It was
knives.
ingredients. It
Mhm.
was That was ingredients too.
Yeah, ingredients with
Oh, it was when
baking.
it was your fault when it was ingredients and then
Kitchen equipment
equipment. So
mishaps.
this was the equipment.
Yep, mishaps and
Did we
knives.
actually mishaps and knives? Okay.
Yeah, because I know we did talk about knives
It's
and we
really
talked about
fun.
knife safety.
It's really fun when you're like, did we do that? Did we?
Yeah.
Anyways, we hope you enjoyed learning about how we have mishaps in the kitchen just like everyone else.
Yeah.
Because we're normal people, even though we're professionals too. Yeah, I feel like that's the exact
That's
thing of like
basically it.
shit happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just got to keep rolling with the punches and adapt. And there's so many good tips in this episode. And so glad that you guys are here.
Yeah. Hopefully you find them useful.
Yes.
Because we
Please,
think they're, yeah.
I would even say, please implement them even in
Yes.
your own home. Let your kids, let your
Well,
family and partners
That's kind of the
know.
point of us sharing them is like,
Yeah.
even though they're stuff for like professional kitchens and things like that, using them at home keeps you safer.
Or even in everyday life.
Definitely.
Because
we've said behind at the grocery store.
We definitely said behind at the grocery store.
Because there's people who are just like stepping back and you're like, I don't want to hit you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, implement them.
Please.
They're helpful.
They will make life so much smoother.
And if you liked watching this episode and you're like, hey, they seem cool,
give us a follow.
Give us a follow. Or give us a review. Or share this with someone you're like, they should watch this episode.
Even if it's just for laughs.
Yep. And if you're like, nope, they're a little too crazy, you should still follow anyways. Because
we're always putting out something new. We're always
like,
coming out with new stuff.
Do you think we're fun? I feel like
I think we're fun. I think we're a lot of fun.
Hopefully others do too, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, we hope you enjoyed this episode, and until next time,
keep it 100% fresh.